Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Fan Behavior. I'm Zoe, back with Hannah.
Hello.
Woo, race weekend.
This is the Formula One we know and love.
Yay, I love it here.
Mhm.
No, actually, there's some positives.
There are, yeah.
There's one positive for
Sure.
me this weekend. So much to get into. Anything else you want to talk about before we get into the race weekend? Fun developments?
Oh no. I thought I could talk about Miami.
Oh, sure, please do.
Well, once again, this episode is brought to you by the Formula One, Crypto.com Miami Grand Prix, the race that's unexperienced. Incredible food, stunning art, and epic entertainment. Grandstand tickets are still available. Go to f1miami.com or check out the link in the episode description and grab yours now. I personally am very excited for Miami. That will be the first race we're attending in person.
Yes.
And who knows, maybe it will be as depressing as this one. I'm kidding.
Or,
it was depressing.
Yeah, and it's crazy to think that last year Miami was Lando's very first win.
I know, so much has changed.
And look at where we are now.
A year can change a lot of things, guys.
That P4 Daniel Miami sprint, that was as good as it was going to get.
Yeah,
that's
we
as
didn't know
good
that now,
as it's
going to get.
Wait, what's that from? Oh, Princess Diaries.
Oh, yeah. As always, this is as good as it's gonna get.
We didn't even know what we had until it's gone.
No.
Isn't that the truth?
Hindsight, man.
Yeah. Okay, should we just get into the race weekend? Obviously, it was a sprint weekend.
Yeah.
I knew it was a sprint weekend. I knew China was the first sprint, but it didn't click in for me until maybe like Monday or Tuesday of this week. I was like, oh, it's a sprint weekend. And I texted you and I was like, it's a sprint. And there's something very, when it's a sprint at not opportune times for us, makes it extra.
My response was, well, F me then.
Yeah. Because I feel like it's totally fine, the sprints, when we can watch them all at normal hours. But when you're having, everything is middle of the night or whatever, it's just
and
a
you
little.
can never touch your phone.
Yeah. Which is probably good.
For the best. Yeah. I set up a new focus now on my phone.
What's that?
Well, I called it incident because,
nice.
And it's where basically text messages are allowed to come through and certain, but I can't get notifications from Instagram or FanAmp or any of the ESPN, none of those, because I want to be able to text and be on my phone, but I love to be in the know. So notifications I have on everything, and those can sometimes.
I would say that would stress me out.
Yeah, I know. I think it probably does add some anxiety.
Yeah,
I should probably take some of them off.
I'm a chronic no notifications.
But if I for a lot of this stuff, if I don't have the notifications, I don't.
I know
that's
that's a good point. That's a good point. Well, that's fun. That's a fun.
Well, it saved me today, I think, because I think I would have found out about the disqualification while I was watching.
Oh, that's a good point, because you would have gotten the notification.
Yeah.
Right.
Highly recommend.
True. Okay, let's just jump to sprint qualifying.
Yeah, let's go. That's fine, because I certainly didn't watch practice.
So, it was on early or late or whatever.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Wherever you are in the world.
It was when I was asleep.
Yeah, exactly. It was also like a weeknight. It was a school night for us,
I don't stay out on school nights.
No. So Q1, we had Liam.
Yeah.
I think we need to save the Liam conversation. I don't think we can have it right now, but it was a little shocking, the P20 of it all. But again, as we'll get into, I'm sure, his first time driving in China, there was, at that point in time of the weekend, I was willing to give a little bit of grace, where I was still shocked about the P20.
Yeah.
But wasn't as shocking as we'll get to.
Yeah. And, I was kind of just, okay, it's just a sprint.
Yes.
We still got
it's
more opportunities.
We can build. Nico was out, Esteban, Pierre, and Jack. Jack did out-qualify Pierre Gasly.
Yes, he did.
Which,
credit where credit's due.
And we take, not that I like Pierre, but obviously his seat's not at risk.
Yeah.
So I'm looking out for Jack here.
Right.
Q2, we lost Isaac. I'm also going to call him Gabby as well.
Okay,
Gabby. Right. Carlos.
I know.
Tough weekend for Carlos.
It's very interesting. So I was listening, I can't remember what I was listening to, but where they're basically saying and I believe it's true, but Carlos is a good driver. And it's hard. It's just because we don't do it. it's hard to imagine like that the change in the physical car itself could like impact your ability to drive it so much.
But that's what we said. We said that so many times with other drivers, Daniel, Checo, other people, where
Liam,
it's like,
maybe.
Yeah, you have a car that suits you, and then you move teams, and it takes some time to adjust. And I think he's having that adjustment period.
Yeah.
Anyway, Ollie also got out, and Alonso. Shout out to Isaac for giving Yuki that little toe.
I know, so sweet.
To get into Q3 because he had already messed up his lap. He knew that was over for him, and so playing the team game.
Team player.
Shout out to Isaac.
Yeah. Also, I just wanted to shout out to Lily, who we got a shot of in the garage. She's just an icon.
We got a couple shots.
I love
her. Of her today as well. And then Q3, we got a Lewis pole.
We did,
which was quite shocking.
It was very unexpected for me. So
very
I'm glad
unexpected.
You thought that
I just feel like the Ferrari was just not, and as we'll get to later, I feel like they've just been in that P4, P5 range, not really showing like they're a top contender for a pole or a win. And so for him to come out of nowhere and get that pole, I mean, I for one was thrilled about it. And then, but I was kind of, I shouldn't say upset, but I wanted it to be Lewis and Oscar, and Max split them, which is fine. Which is fine. And as we talked about before, Alex out qualifying Carlos again. It's a little topsy-turvy. I feel like we expected Carlos to be better than Alex initially, and maybe we shouldn't have. Maybe that was naive of us to think that, or we didn't give Alex enough credit. But that was kind of surprising for me. And then Lewis seeming to be, at least in the sprint part of the weekend, more in tune with the car than Charlotte Leclerc was. Which is also, I think, what we expected.
No, especially because it's like, his fourth time in the car.
Exactly. Okay, when Lewis got pole position and his race engineer, did he say Santiago or did he say San Diego? Did you notice that?
Yeah, I think he said Santiago, and regardless of what he did say, I'm not sure. I thought it might have been like an inside joke.
I know, if anyone knows whether, because I've seen it people saying it both ways, that some people thought it was Santiago, some people thought it was San Diego. Santiago seems more likely than San Diego, and I don't really know why. But if anyone knows what that means, I would love to know, because it does seem sort of like a code word.
Yeah.
But I just didn't know what that meant.
Yeah, I do wish, I know it would like give too much away, but I wish we could have like a list of all the code words that they use. It would just be fun.
I know. Yeah. Maybe at the end of the season they can give us a little dictionary or something of what everything means.
Yeah.
Anything else from qualifying?
Not really.
Okay. Let's get to the sprint race. So Lando had a little bit of a stumble in the opening lap, fell back to 9th. Not a great sprint weekend for Lando. He struggled. He was just stuck behind Lance Stroll the whole time. I think everyone was like, hello.
Yeah.
Get on it, move past. And he just was not happy with the situation in his car. And then he finally did pass Lance Stroll. But it was, these are the kinds of things like I think we have to watch for over the course of the season with these championship contending drivers like Lando and Oscar and Max. These types of little mistakes, which are normal, everyone does them. Oscar had it last weekend. Lando had the one here, but like those things do add up over the course of the season. So it's like, I guess the point is who's going to have the least amount of those tiny mistakes. Still only the second race, but
yeah, it's interesting.
Great start by Lewis, great start by Yuki. He got by Kimi, and great start by George as well. Liam, starting from the back, he's just like trying to make some moves. Yeah. And he was making some moves, but it was a little clunky.
Yeah, it was a little aggressive and a little punchy. Well, punchy's not in the context that we use it in.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It was stressing me out.
He was just it was like he was forcing everything. It was like he was really trying to make it happen.
And it's the classic, like, he's not qualifying well, so the only thing he can do to prove himself is to like move forward in the pack. And but like the strategy at which he's going about it seems like it could lead to error more often than not.
Right. Well, and you're having to pass all these back marker cars, these cars that you should already be in front of in theory. And so it's sort of, yes, it's good. And I think they even said this in the commentary, he's doing what he has to do, which is move up the order, but also he shouldn't be in this situation in the first place. So it's sort of, he's doing what he can do in the situation, but he kind of knocked Jack. They bonked wheels. And I think someone else, was it Gabby and someone else two other rookies also
Jack
hit wheels.
Turned third. Yeah, at some point,
or Isaac,
Jack
maybe?
and Gabby
Jack and Gabby
an issue. Mm-hmm.
Well, that was at the end of the race.
That was at the end. Yeah. So
I think it was Isaac and someone.
Yeah,
they hit wheels, but those rookies are not afraid to play a little bumper cars. They go in. I know.
We said that kind of at the beginning during like our predictions episode that like they are just kind of like relentless and they're not worried about. They just go for it.
They go for it. They send it. They're not afraid. And I think that's kind of the like junior category vibe of just, you're just going for it. And you're not maybe thinking as much about, okay, what does this mean for the rest of my race? Or when should I go for it? When should I not go for it?
Well, and I was talking to Maisie and Sean pointed out, which I did think is a very, it's an obvious but an interesting data point, is none of their frontal lobes are developed yet. So there is an element of just like whatevs.
Yeah, gotta go for it.
Yes. They're like much more ready to like fully send it. Yes. I also wanted to point out, as we've talked about the graphics, which who knew so many men could get upset about two girls talking about a change in graphics as if it didn't bother you. I like the rookie leaderboard that they have that pops up sometimes.
That's nice.
I didn't realize Liam was included in the rookie leaderboard.
Well, I think it
makes sense.
It makes sense. I think it's just because he hasn't had a full season.
Yeah.
So that's why they include him. But it does feel like it should have a little sort of, I guess he had a certain number of races last season. Ollie had a certain number of races, you know, so it's not fully fair.
Yeah.
But anyway, I did enjoy, there wasn't really a lot of fighting in the front of the sprint, but the midfield sort of back of the pack battle, they were good. And I think, again, it's because the rookies don't give no Fs, and they're just gonna send it, even if they're fighting, as we see at the end of the race, fighting for 18th position. It's like, we're gonna go for it.
Yeah.
Oscar finally got past Max, which I was happy about. I'm happy to see him up there. And then Jack and Gabby, their little crash at the end. People were saying it's wicked promo.
Oh.
Because
Brilliant.
The pink, and because they were facing each other, like kind of how. Sort of.
I hope someone has or will make an edit of that with something.
It's like they're maybe 6 months too early on the Wicked promo for part 2, but that's okay. But I was kind of surprised. I mean, Jack, again, he's fighting for his life. Every overtake is important. You do so. But I was a little bit like, did you need to do that?
Well, no, but his frontal lobe isn't.
Very, very true. And obviously Lewis won, and I was so happy to see it. I was so thrilled for him. Obviously, it's just fun. I think it's nice. We've had 3 races in quotations. I know the sprint isn't a race, but we've had 3 competitive sessions where there's been a winner, and for there to be 3 different winners is nice. Because and at the beginning of the season, I think it's only going to get more close as we progress, but for us to go into a race weekend and not expect anything from a Ferrari, and then for them to win a race, makes me feel like, okay, we really can go into any race weekend and know that anything's possible.
Yeah, and at least they had something good come out of the weekend.
At least they had something good.
Why did Sainz pit?
I don't know. I think he had something wrong with his tires.
Okay, I didn't know if it was just.
I know
like,
that was
he wasn't going well, so they were. It was like a data thing for.
Maybe. I don't know, but it was another weird. It was
he's
just
the only one who
weird.
pitted, right?
Yeah, I think so. Weird to see him struggling so much. Yeah, it's very interesting. It's very interesting when these drivers. It goes to show you, and as we'll get into, compatibility with a car is so important.
Yeah.
And just because someone is fast in a certain car doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work in another car, and vice versa. And it's just, we'll get to that.
Yes, we will.
Okay. Q1 race qualifying. Is this where we have our Liam conversation?
Sure. Because
Liam gets out in Q1. Not only just gets out in Q1, P20 again.
Yeah.
What was your reaction?
I was really gutted.
I was genuinely like jaw on the floor, shocked by that. I mean, I sort of felt like, okay, Liam, just get into Q2. Qualify like P13, P14, just something a little bit to show you're progressing somewhat.
Yeah.
P20 was just holy cannoli. Now, did you listen to his interview? Yeah. Again, I respected his outlook, I suppose, or what he was saying. Like, he didn't I mean, he took a lot of accountability, I think, for the issues. I think he's also saying, there are these as we said last week, there are these factors, hasn't raced in China, whatever, blah, 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 but it's not an excuse.
Right.
And he basically said, yes, there are these things that are going against me. It's a hard car to drive, but also I shouldn't be qualifying P20.
Like I need to get it together.
This is, even with these things that didn't maybe go my way, this is unacceptable. It's interesting because then after qualifying, Max talked about how, I want to just reel it back a little bit. I do think, because there's been a lot of discussion about the other drivers that Red Bull have gone through, and I do think we all, certainly you and I talked a lot last year about Checo. I do think we owe Checo a slight apology for. I don't think we were fully aware. We knew that Red Bull was hard to drive, but I don't think we were so aware of how specific of a car it was to drive. And, as Toto said, Checo has been saying the car is fucked.
Yeah,
but
so true.
Did we listen to Checo?
Well, it's not that we didn't. I think where I get with that conversation, I think what was frustrating for me, it's not that I didn't understand what Checo was saying. It was that I think in the larger Red Bull organization, people that we have a lot more stock in, I guess, or people that we care about more personally, like are more invested in, like the Daniels, the Alex Albon, like they were so quick to, well, Daniel wasn't, but like they were so quick to be removed.
You mean like with
and it was like,
and Alex.
Okay, so Checo is doing maybe what Pierre and Alex, like same kind of vibes, but he gets to stay. Why does he get to stay? I think that's where my frustration was coming from, and because there have been years, seasons before where Checo was a lot more competitive, and so I was kind of like, well, what's falling off?
I think that's what it was too for me, which is like we saw Checo do well, and then he wasn't doing well. So it did. I think there was a part of us that felt like, well, clearly there's been because he's shown he can do it. So where's the drop off? Now maybe in his defense, we should have thought, well, then that probably is the car, because if he was doing well before and he's not doing well now.
Yeah. I also
there were a lot of factors involved, but I do just want to say, like, I think we I think Checo, obviously we said this back when he was having his issues too. He's a good driver. He's a good driver. This isn't the best environment for him. There's so many other pressure issues, things that were affecting his driving that hurt him. That wasn't his fault. But it just makes, I think people are now having the switch of like, oh, okay, maybe it really is the car.
Yeah.
And we actually need to maybe be, and we did. And we I think do feel like Red Bull is, they hold a lot of blame, or they're responsible for ensuring that their car is a car that more than one person can drive.
Yeah, and I think it's almost, and I obviously don't know if this is true, but part of me wonders if Liam is really just taking accountability because he like wants to take the accountability, or if there's also like this thing from Red Bull to like not talk about the comparison between the cars, because the reality of the situation is it is partly the car. I mean,
100%.
And you can't avoid that. We can't have that not be part of the conversation. I think it's an old clip, but I saw it the other day. It was Alex was on a and did you send that to me, or did I?
No, but okay. It's been circulating.
Yeah, and it was just a really interesting way of talking about it, because he was saying that like Max and I like the car the same way, but the thing with Max is that he likes it like so. I think it was like the front end, like so sensitive, that as it keeps getting more and more sensitive throughout the season, especially when you're like first of all, the pressure of Red Bull, period. Like there's so much expectation internally, externally, blah, blah, blah. And then it's so sensitive that where you want to make, a move or, do something that lacks a frontal lobe, you get more nervous because you know how sensitive it is, and then you cannot drive well when you're always on guard. That's just like, regardless of your frontal lobe development, it's just not going to work. And so I think that adds to it. And I mean, I know so little about the inside baseball of all that, and I imagine that they're doing the best that they can, but it is really difficult when, I mean, Red Bull is Max's team that has a second driver.
Well, yes. And also, so there were quotes that came out. What I was going to say, initially. There were quotes that came out after qualifying where, because then there's the question of, wait, is the Racing Bulls car actually faster than the Red Bull? And what Max and Max said something to this, he basically said the Racing Bulls is an easier car to drive. And I think the way that I have visualized it, and I think the way other people have sort of explained it, is like the window for the Red Bull car to be successful is quite narrow. It's very, very small, but the ceiling is quite high.
Yeah.
So if you can get it within that window, you have the potential to fight for a top 5 position, a podium, maybe a win. But if you are not within that window, you're effed, essentially. Yeah. Whereas the Racing Bulls, the window is much wider.
Yeah.
But the ceiling is lower. So like it's easier to drive. It's maybe easier to put in a decent performance, but you can only go your so capacity. Far. Yes, exactly. And so that's where Red Bull is finding themselves, which is if you have 2 drivers who can work in that window, great.
Yeah.
But the odds of you being able to find drivers, especially brand new F1 drivers,
right.
It's very, very difficult. And we saw it with Pierre. We saw it with Alex. We saw it with Checo. And I think, and now we're obviously seeing it with Liam too. And so at some point, yes, Max, and Max has said this car is not easy to drive. Max is putting it places.
In it for years. He's been in this team forever.
Right. And he's been putting it places, I think, this season where the car shouldn't be. I think there's some middle ground where it actually probably is. So, that's what's difficult. Now, I also think, like we said last year, did Red Bull learn their lesson about, because I think they were smart last time by putting Checo in the Red Bull because he was an established F1 driver who had success, years of experience. Okay, yeah, the car didn't fit his style or didn't really work for him, but he still was able to extract more from the car because he's had years of experience
and been on multiple teams and had that whole process of learning a new car.
Exactly.
All that, yeah.
And then I think Red Bull I think they underestimate how difficult the car is to drive. And also I think they just sort of expect someone's going to figure it out eventually.
Yeah. It's like, well, it's an expensive game you're playing.
Right. And now, I mean, I'm at the point where I'm like, this is on Christian Horner and this is on Helmut Marko, frankly, because now you've kind of, and I don't know if we want to get into the whole Liam conversation right now, but now you've kind of, once again, you've completely rattled this person.
Right. I mean, he's rattled, period.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. And you've also, and I think we were, kind of talking about this before, Red Bull making the decision last year to say, okay, we're going to put in Liam mid-season and we're going to we're going to sign Checo to this 2-year contract. And then we're going to say, just kidding, we're going to pay Checo out of this contract. Did you see Ted Kravitz, what he said to Christian Horner?
I don't think so.
After qualifying yesterday, he basically said
I did.
You didn't pay Checo out for these types of performances. True. It's like they made an expensive payment towards Checo to get worse results.
Yeah.
And so it's like, is this really what you're paying for?
I love Ted.
But I also think too, I think where there's a lot of emotion involved in this whole situation. One, because you have 2 drivers in that Red Bull family, and Daniel and Checo, who are just so beloved.
Yeah.
People love them. We said this last year, 2 of, the most beloved drivers ever, and fan bases who love these 2 drivers. And you essentially kick one out unceremoniously, in terrible fashion. You then also kick out the other driver, just all right, see ya. And now we're here.
Right.
And so I think there's a lot of fans who feel, and I'm in that camp too, where I'm like,
what have you done?
For what?
Yeah, right.
For what? Why did we have to go through all of that?
Yeah.
For this.
Right.
And that makes me piss all over again.
Yeah, well, and I'm also on this side where I'm I really want Liam to do well.
And it's not Liam's fault.
I know. So please, just, can you give him a second? Can we not make a change tomorrow?
Okay, so let's get to that too, because we're just having the Liam conversation now, and we'll get to the rest of the race.
Fine.
Because I think it does need to be had in all one foul swoop. So obviously Liam struggles in qualifying. Then he qualifies P20. They decided to make some changes on the car because he's P20. So they said, well, let's just start from the pit lane. Doesn't work out so well for him, even with, as we'll get to, all the disqualifications and whatnot. Liam's still not in the points. And so now there's a conversation, there's reports that are coming out, and maybe things will come out even after we finish recording, hopefully not, that Yuki could replace Liam for Japan.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, I'm in like many
I'm scared
minds
about
this. So the one I've seen the reporting is basically saying like the reason for this switch is because it's to protect Liam so that he doesn't go further down the rabbit hole, which I can understand.
Totally.
I can understand that because if he goes to Japan, now it's interesting because Japan's actually a track he knows pretty well because he raced there in Formula One when he replaced Daniel the first time when he hurt his hand. And then he also has raced there in Super Formula. So it's actually a track he should probably do well at. So in a way you could say, well, this could be a race where he could get his confidence back a little bit. But if it goes badly again, then you're really in a hole. Yeah. And will he be able to get out of it at that point? Like,
and I just don't know how it plays on his psyche too to have the switch in general. You know what I mean? Like even if it is an easier car, even if he does do really well, like yes, that might help. But then if the plan is to like, what are you switching them immediately for the rest of the season? Are you switching them for a couple of races? Are you switching them for one race just to calm him down? Like,
is the switch happening because they know okay, we can't really do much about the car. The car fix isn't going to happen immediately.
The car is fucked.
So, I mean, Checo's been saying it.
Yeah.
The car won't be fixed immediately, so we don't want to. We're gonna withhold Liam until we can get the car in a better maybe working window, and then we just see how Yuki does. Because again, back to the old point, Yuki does have more experience in Formula One. He has driven lots of different types of cars that are hard to drive, easier to drive.
Yeah.
We don't know how he'll do in the Red Bull, obviously, if that ends up happening. But like, and this is also what we were saying last season, which is like, that's why Yuki was the better choice.
Right.
Even if he maybe wasn't faster or so much faster than Liam right out of the gate, it actually doesn't matter. Red Bull was trying to use the Racing Bull seat as the like testing ground for the Red Bull,
which doesn't make a lick of sense.
It should have been they should have, and not to like regurgitate old vibes or whatever, but like if they were gonna kick out Checo anyway, regardless, right? They should have put Daniel in the Red Bull to see. He could have gone out. He could have been terrible in it, but you ask the question, you figure it out, you see. If it's terrible, question's been answered. You checked all the boxes. You move on from there. But you give Liam and Yuki a lot more time to race against each other, and then you can make a better decision. But now there's all of this sort of questioning. Is this right? Is this wrong? It's just all a big old mess.
Yeah.
If Yuki goes in and doesn't do well, then what do you do?
Right.
I mean, then you're... Okay, now Isaac...
And then,
turn,
for the
Isaac.
next week, Yuki's going to be a terrible F1 driver and shouldn't be in the sport anymore. And also, too, like... At his home race, can we please?
I know. That is kind of crazy.
Because he's either going to do really well or really not. And it stresses the whole thing. I'm just like, oh my God. And honestly, like just a quick sidebar here. I feel so empathetic for the marketing teams because the amount of like work that has to be done to turn around, like it's 2 weeks, right? We have a week off. But still, like if they do make this switch, the photo shoots that have to happen, the printed collateral, all the stuff, it's just like, oh my God, money.
Yeah, and you're right. In the question, and I do think if Liam got in the Racing Bulls, he would be better.
I think he would too.
I
but
do
again,
think he would, but it doesn't. But the Red Bull doesn't care about how you do in the Racing Bulls. It doesn't matter.
I know.
They need you to do well in the Red Bull.
I know. And again, I don't know the inside baseball, but I think where I get frustrated is instead of keeping like consistently switching around the drivers, can we maybe put some effort into making the second car drivable for the person who's in the seat right now?
Yes, I know, but I think that's the point, which is that it's going to take too long for them to actually get to a place where it is, and at that point is Liam's confidence, everything's so emotional, so it's so foregone that like he can never get it back, because that's the other thing you risk is the amount of the lack of confidence he must feel right now, the just deflation you feel
you could see it in his face
is not great, and at some point, like we said, and now's the time that responsibility falls on not the drivers but the people in charge, because if Max leaves, and that's the thing, right? Red Bull has kind of been saved all these years by Max, because they have someone like him in the car. If Max chooses to leave or something, what do you have then?
Right? Who
do you have? Where is your car then? I mean, it's not a good, and they're also in a tough position because they don't want an Oscar Piastri, a Carlos Sainz, a whoever in that second seat. they want their Red Bull team drivers, their junior drivers, or they want like an aging veteran. But that's not going to get you what you need, really. So it's just they're in a really tough position. As
I don't envy them.
Yeah, as we mentioned, there's been some reporting following the race that Yuki potentially could replace Liam for Japan. Nothing has been officially confirmed yet. On one hand, obviously, as a Yuki defender, I want to see him. I want to see it because at the end of the day, too, for Yuki, he's already kind of like they don't have any loyalty towards Yuki anyway, so he could be kicked out of this season regardless. So part of me is like, might as well go out guns a-blazing.
For sure.
Give it a shot, see what happens. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, but at least he kind of got the chance. On the other hand, I'm like, he's doing so well, but also his team keeps effing him over. So we'll get to that too. But like, so part of me is like, could it get any worse for him? Really? I don't know. What if they make the switch and then Isaac is performing better than Liam?
Oh God.
Like there's so many questions. It's really
Isaac's doing great.
He's doing great.
I'm so happy for him.
He's doing great. So it's just chaos.
Yeah, it is really.
It's really chaotic. Are we still in qualifying? I think we are.
Q1, I think. So we can move to this. That's where all the turmoil started.
That's the Liam conversation. Yeah. And complicated endeavor. It's an emotionally charged conversation. I know that there's lots of fans that have strong feelings about it. We certainly do. More to come.
Yeah, and I just the reality is I have a soft spot for him, and I want him to do well, and I don't want him to be screwed over. So,
but maybe a switch would be the best thing for him.
Yes, maybe it would.
Chinese farmer.
Yes, amen.
As we always say.
Yes.
Okay, so. The other people out in Q1 was Gabby, Jack, Ollie, Pierre. We get to Q2. Carlos out in Q2 again. Yeah. Kind of a shock. The Aston Martins were out. Hulk and Esteban.
George told everyone to calm down.
Yeah.
That was funny.
That was funny. We had that Oscar pole position. Thrilled for him. George coming in and splitting the McLarens. Did not expect that.
Did not expect that.
But
either.
Good on you, George.
And then I wrote down Alex's engineer said that he just snuck in by a whisker, which I really appreciated.
I loved that. Isaac out qualifying Yuki. Good for Isaac.
Yeah.
Obviously after last race, I think Yuki screwed up on his final lap. But obviously that Racing Bulls car is looking pretty handy.
Yeah,
so
it is looking handy.
Good for him. Did you?
I also have to say too, just quickly on the Liam thing, like also clearly at this track, like Max is Max, but like his car wasn't doing hot either.
No, it wasn't. That's the thing. The car is not in a good position. It's not good.
Insert Checo's quote here.
Yeah, insert Toto's quote from Checo.
Via Checo.
We actually never got. Did we ever get confirmation from Checo as to whether or not he did say the car's fucked?
No, but he has receipts. We just haven't seen them.
He hasn't put them out.
Yeah, he hasn't printed out, but he hasn't put them on the internet, which is too bad.
And then did you see that Bono accidentally called Kimi Lewis?
No.
Yeah, in qualifying, he accidentally called Kimi Lewis. Talk about someone whose frontal lobe is not developed but is doing excellent.
Totally. He's so great. Sometimes they just have it.
Sometimes they just have it, exactly.
He's so sweet.
I know. Love Kimi. Did you see the videos of him and George, Kimi on the scooter with George like behind?
Yes, and it was really funny because James Coker reposted it with Celine Dion's "My Heart Will Go On" his stories, and I thought the original post had the song, so I also shared it. And then when I realized, because the song made it better, and so when I realized the song was not originally part of it, I deleted it from my story.
Well, you could have just added it to yours.
Well, I didn't want to
copy.
Because I
Sure.
I didn't want to, I could have given credit to James, but I just messaged him anyway and said this was really a nice job.
Hilarious. Yeah, I mean, I was obviously thrilled for Oscar. That was his first pole position,
I know, which is wild,
crazy. First, because he's had a couple sprint poles, I think, but never a main race pole. And they did share, the last Australian to get a pole position, Mr. Danny Rick, 7 years ago, which is crazy.
God, we really came into this game late, huh?
Yeah, you're telling me, Jane.
Honestly, can you imagine how much worse it would be if we got in earlier?
No, it would have been better.
Well, and worse.
I
think the fall would have been harder.
Yeah, but we would have at least had the good memories.
That's true.
Yeah.
All we have is photos.
All we have is the videos.
Yeah.
Shit.
Okay.
Anything else from qualifying?
No.
All right. The race. So we had Lando immediately at the start getting past George Russell.
Yes.
Good on you, George. I was worried about George coming after Oscar, but thankfully that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Charles had a little bit of contact with Lewis, lost his front end plate.
Yeah. Lewis, someone hit me. Yeah. Your guy.
I mean, to be fair, I guess I wouldn't know either. That was, initially I was just like, oh God, here we go again.
Totally.
And, to be fair, that wasn't the worst of his problems.
No,
that day.
It wasn't. And honestly, funny enough, it seemed
Did
to
pretty
help
well.
a lot
Did
of
pretty
things.
well.
Yeah. Which is interesting.
And then we had, who was behind Fernando and they were like, oh, it was Pierre.
Brakes on fire.
Brakes on fire. Brakes on fire.
Why is it always Nando's car that's on fire?
Is it though?
Well, this year.
When else was it on fire?
Not on fire, but just like, didn't he have to retire before? Or did I make that up?
I don't think so.
Must have made it up. But
oh no, he did. He did retire in Australia. Yes, from the crash. Yeah. He's had a rough go of it.
It's just interesting
so far this season. Yeah, things are very kind of topsy turvy because Lance has been performing really well.
He's been doing great.
Fernando, I mean,
hasn't been able to perform.
Hasn't been able to perform. It's just a lot of things are a little bit. I think it's all forcing all of us to sit back and think a little bit.
I know, it's kind of fun.
Like to really question, to really
go back. What are we doing here?
And also question our own judgment and it's good for us, I think.
Yeah, I think
forcing
it's
us to sit back and reflect.
Yeah, plus the goldfish memory that exists in this sport. I think it's good for us all.
Okay, we have to just take a moment to just talk about when Yuki was. Do you have the full quote?
I want to use more front. We don't want to. Well, I want to. Gorgeous.
And what did he say back? Like, okay, then do it.
Yeah, do what you need to do.
I cackled. Like,
so funny.
I want to.
Yeah.
I mean,
and I'm in the car, so I don't care what you say, because
I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
Yuki, I've missed your radio so much.
So
it's
much.
always sublime.
Yeah.
Truly sublime.
Yeah. Must have had another latte.
Must have, yeah. And then that was, I mean, his patience for his team is on thin ice.
The thinnest.
The thinnest of ice. We'll get back to him. George undercut Lando. He pitted earlier than Lando and undercut him, but then Lando got him back, so it didn't really matter. Yeah. But Yuki also undercut Kimi. That didn't end up mattering either. Lewis and Charles did a little swaparooski.
Yeah, they did.
Now, Lewis was the one that suggested it at first, I will just say.
And then reminded them that he'll let them know when he's ready.
Yeah. As he should.
Yeah.
He is 40 and he is just like...
He's no rookie,
He is frontal lobe fully developed.
Yeah, very much developed.
Yeah, he's not messing around.
Poor Ricardo. They really got to get their vibes figured out.
Well, also, Charles and his engineer were at it. What was the quote? I don't think I wrote it down.
Does Charles have a new engineer?
No.
Okay.
But what did he say to his engineer? There was something funny.
Which who?
Charles to his engineer.
Yeah, I wrote down several of them. I don't remember. I'll read through this. No, that wasn't it. I'll see if I can find it. Okay. Do you remember roughly when in the race it happened?
Like middle part of it, I think.
After Lewis said that he was going to tell him when they're going to tell him?
I think so.
Oh. Well, there was something. He said something about Merc.
Oh, that it was
unbelievable at
it was
12.
Oh shoot, it was like a dragster.
Yeah, dragster.
But that's not it.
Yeah, I'll see if I can.
It was something sassy back to his engineer.
Yeah, I wrote it down. I know I did, but
it's okay. Okay. Yeah, so that they did the little swaparooski. Charles did seem to be a bit faster, but then started to struggle and whatever. Ollie just throwing out chows left.
King.
Now, to be fair, I think he maybe did one too many chows. Like I think one chow is like fine, but I think then he was just chow.
Right, and like how many people do you think remember the
no one.
Pierre Esther?
No one. Just us.
Okay, it's literally I think I've told you guys this before, but I do I get custom pop sockets and I have them with like one of the radio commentaries, and the one I have right now is when Pierre passed Esteban and said ciao. So that really I was very tickled by that.
Yeah, that was funny. That was a good all. He was doing really well today, Ollie. I was proud of him. He got in the points. He was passing people. He had some good pace.
You know what? I think keep talking. I think I screenshotted it because Michaela posted about it and I knew I'd want to talk about it.
Okay.
Let me see if I can find it.
Also, Esteban was really good. That overtake he had on Kimi, I believe, when he got into the dirt. Kicked it all up. That was brave of you, Esteban. Congratulations.
Yeah, nicely done.
Terrible. So then it becomes this game of strategy. Do you do a one stop or do you do a two stopper?
Yeah.
And some teams chose to do two, but it seemed like actually by the end of the race, the preferred strategy was the one stop race. Racing Bulls decides to do both drivers two stop race. Disaster. First of all, why did you not just split the strategy, pit Isaac, and leave Yuki out there? Like, at least split the strategy.
Totally agree.
Yuki definitely would have finished in the points, certainly after the disqualification. I think even with the disqualification or without it, he would have been in like P8 or P7. They both pit, and then Yuki's front wing just decides to brake for no reason.
Front wing damage from what? Because that was what was so weird is I was like, okay, wait.
I know.
I swear it was Isaac who went off. So why are you showing me that about the wing damage? Like, what's going on?
I was like, I know there was no, like, he didn't crash into anyone. Yeah. I was like, how did this happen?
And then Crofton was like, yeah, I was wondering the same thing.
Literally just being behind Carlos Sainz, boom, the damage. From what? I was dead. Oh, I was so pissed. That's 2 weekends in a row where Yuki should have gotten a good points haul.
And the pit stop was bad. It was long.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't at that point.
Yeah, it didn't matter.
Gone.
But yeah, it was.
But he should have like at least, I don't know, maybe 15 points more on his tally than he has. I mean, this is disastrous. It's a disaster.
Yeah.
Not great, but whatever. Jack Doohan gets a 10-second penalty. Was that on Ollie?
Isaac.
No, Isaac. Yeah. Yeah, he was a little messy. He's a little messy. But that wasn't great. Isaac did finally pass him, but Jack was doing everything in his power to prevent that from happening.
Yeah, quite literally.
Then Lando starts to have this brake problem.
Yeah.
And
which is interesting because it sounded like it was more with the pedal itself, not with the power of the brakes, which is complicated to me.
Yeah, it's
my brain couldn't put it all
but
together.
we just know it was a brake problem, and it was getting more and more and more disastrous as the race was going on.
No, poor Will. He was like, I know you don't want to hear from me, but I got to tell you, this is not going well. My favorite was when he came on and he was like, this is really boring, but we just wanted you to know that the power's fine, but you will continue to have degradation in the pedal.
Yeah. And it was getting perilous, to say the least.
Yeah,
and basically, it was, what did he say? It's like, this is a critical problem.
Yeah.
I mean, the race end could not have come soon enough for Lando Norris.
I know. And I was nervous George was going to catch him. I think
one more lap, I think not only does he lose George, I think he may have DNF'd.
Yeah.
Or fallen way back. He was
fortunate
to be able to finish the race in P2.
Mm-hmm.
Strong performance from him, obviously, after a maybe not as great sprint race. So good job to Lando. Another strong weekend from George Russell. Just quietly pulling in the points, doing well, getting
handsome George, as they called him.
Handsome George, getting a podium.
He really is just like
he's there.
He's just there, and he's
staying
consistent,
staying out of problems.
I did write down. I don't think this is what you were talking about, but Chuck's engineer was telling him something, and he was like, "I know you've told me 10 or 15 times already."
That was it. That was it. Yep.
And I just thought
it was very much like a dad and his son.
Yeah, well, and that happened with Lewis at some point earlier, where Lewis was just like, "You've already told me this." Like, I remember.
You know what's
I've
good
been doing
though?
this
Honestly,
for a while.
It's good because we've talked about this a lot before in regards to Ferrari. The communication is not always top tier.
Yeah, no, it's not.
And it's getting better. I think Fred's influence has definitely impacted I think it's better. But I think it's kind of good for people like Lewis and Charles Leclerc to kind of be like,
tell me something new.
To make them think about how they're communicating to their drivers.
Because what did Lewis say? He said, give me some feedback.
Yeah.
And then he was like, yeah, you've told me that already, so I need something new. I've received that feedback already. Thanks.
Oh God. It's only going to get worse for them.
Yep, it is.
So then
little did they know.
So after the race, was over. You know, thankfully, at least it didn't have anything to do with the podium, because that's always the worst when disqualifications happen and it impacts the people on the podium, just because then certain people don't get to celebrate the podium if they did get on the podium, vice versa. But we find out after the race that Charles Leclerc, Lewis Hamilton, and Pierre Gasly, you know, just got to throw in Charles' bestie just to complete the deal, were all disqualified. So
which Macy did point out at one time was your dream podium.
Was it?
I think so. She said in like season 2.
Okay.
She listens more than we do.
I was going to say, Daniel wasn't a part of that equation, but yes.
Oh, maybe it was when he wasn't around.
Yeah, maybe when he went. So Pierre and Charles' car were both underweight, and then Lewis's car had excessive wear on its skid block. So that was what, for those who don't remember, that Lewis disqualification is what George was disqualified for back in Spa last year. So
the underweight thing is sus.
You mean?
I just think it's weird.
Yeah, I think it probably has to do with fuel loads.
I don't know.
And also, did Charles Leclerc do a one stop? Because that also can impact it too. Like,
I think he did.
If you're tired, like your tires being very worn down, that makes you lighter.
Part of his front wing, never replaced it.
Yeah. They did talk about how you can replace that actually at the end of the race. You can actually you can add that back in as a part of your weight. So even with that issue, I suppose, but just disastrous. So now, in case people don't know the new top 10, I can tell you the reclassified. Yes, so Oscar obviously P1, Lando P2, George 3rd, Max in 4th, Esteban in 5th place.
Wow, go Haas.
Kimi in 6th, Alex in 7th, Ollie in 8th, Lance in 9th, and Carlos Sainz squeaking in there 10th
by a whisker.
Place. By a whisker.
Happy birthday to Alex.
Get in that last point. Also, I loved Alex's radio when he said, "Yeah, I'm good. I'm better than everyone. Let's relax. I'm comfortable."
Yeah.
Pop off, Alex.
That is the 29-year-old birthday energy we're looking for.
His frontal lobe is developed.
Yeah, it is.
When is it 27?
I think.
Oh, I thought it was 25 for women, but it was older for men.
Probably. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know either. Anyway, I mean, I'm take positives where we can get it.
Yeah.
Oscar winning the race. For me, I was very happy about that.
Yeah.
Because, if I also think there's a lot of people, obviously as a Lewis Charles fan, I'm very sad about their disqualification, but we have to remind ourselves it is the second race of the season. We have 22 races to go. So much can change in not just one race, but 3 races, 4 races, 5 races. Like, this is just the beginning.
Yeah.
And I know it sucks, but it's not the end. There's so much more to gain, and
22 races, my God.
And
5 more sprints.
5 more sprints, and a lot can change, a lot can happen. I will say, if it is a McLaren, clearly out in front, they're the best team through the course of the season. I do think we will have competition between Lando and Oscar, which is at least
interesting.
Good. Yeah. But I think other people will get involved too. I don't think it's just going to be those two, but it's fun to see them trade off wins at the very least. Anything else from the race?
The only thing I was gonna say is I'm just really glad that Valtteri Bottas is still like adjacent.
Yes.
I don't know if you saw, but when he did the cycle tour around the track,
no, I didn't see that.
That was kind of fun.
That was fun.
And I did see Tiffany had
an
incident. She broke her collarbone. So
thoughts and prayers
for her speedy recovery.
Exactly.
But yeah, just love that his mustache is still hanging around.
Yes. I also just want to shout out, we had F1 Academy back this weekend in China. F1 Academy is doing something very smart. So they have qualifying. So they have 2 races in a weekend, and they have 1 qualifying session, but they do, for the first race, they do a reverse order grid.
We've talked about that.
For the top 10. I think it really mixes it up. It keeps it fresh. It keeps it fun. Will I ever do it in Formula 1?
No.
Probably not. Because the only way it would work is if they did for F1, is if they did 1 qualifying session.
Yeah.
Because if you do a reverse grid, then who's going to want to get pole position, right? So you have to make it so that you want to get pole position for the race, but then you just flip it for the I don't know, maybe it's too gamifying for F1 they would feel, but I think it's fun
I like
for
that they
F1 Academy. I think that's a good
So they do reverse grid from the like
I think they do reverse grid from
results?
the top 10. So like if you qualify 1, you're starting, I think it's top 10, correct me if I'm wrong, it might be top 8, but then you start, then the order flips. So whoever qualifies 8th would start first.
But that's
or 10th or whatever.
Oh, okay.
Does that make sense?
Well, no, because why would you still wouldn't want to qualify?
Because
it
it's
affects
one
the
qualifying
first race.
for 2 races. Yes. So the other race you would be starting from pole position. So it's sort of like
I see. I'm dialed in.
Yeah. So in a way, you almost kind of want to qualify like 4th because then you're kind of in the middle for both of the races.
Yeah.
So anyway, they're back, which is great, and they'll be in Miami. Another reason to go to Miami is to see F1 Academy, and I love their liveries. I don't know if you saw their pictures. The best liveries.
Yeah.
Like that would be the most fun.
And their intro video is so fun.
I know, they're so cute.
Yeah.
I love it.
I loved Chloe's like
finger guns. Also, just a shout out to Danny Rick's karting series because I know we talked about that before, but the winner of the first F1 Academy race, Alicia Palmowski, I think is her name. She was a part of his karting series. So
nice.
Jack Doohan, Alicia.
Besties.
Good job, Daniel. You're developing the next generation of drivers, or helping to develop the next generation of drivers. And Chloe Chambers, who I got to ride in a car with, she got 2 podiums this weekend.
Way to go, Chloe.
Shout out to her. And shout out to Red Bull because both, they're doing great stuff. Okay, should we do our fan info and then we go to questions?
Sure.
Okay, do you want to start with let's start with foe.
Okay.
Just to end on a positive.
I think just Liam it's bummed me out.
Yeah.
And I just, I get too invested in the mental health.
Do you want Yuki in the Red Bull? Like what would your ideal situation be?
I think my biggest concern with Yuki getting in the Red Bull is because of the car, not because of his capability, like being like proving the naysayers correct, like if he isn't able to perform well in the car. I am really excited to see how the Racing Bulls car is right now, and when the strategy is good, like how well he's doing. Like I kind of like that better because again, it's just you don't know what you don't know. Like if I had a crystal ball and I know that like Yuki would get in that car and it would work for him, great. I mean, he is just wild enough that like maybe it would be a perfect car for him. I don't know. But my biggest fear is that he gets in the car and like now he's on the chopping block.
Yes. Okay, this is not my foe, but now I'm kind of going to make it my... Sorry, are you done with your foe?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so there's been a lot of talk, too, about, this curse on the second Red Bull seat. A lot of people talking about who has started this curse, right?
Well, we know who started it.
Okay, so a lot of people say it's Mark Webber, right?
Oh, I didn't say that.
So that's the thing. A lot of people say it's Mark Webber, but my question is, to those who believe it's Mark Webber, is...
Why do they say that?
Because Mark Webber struggled. He was the number 2 driver. And so then he had, his issues with Sebastian Vettel and feeling, there was just a lot of kerfuffle surrounding him feeling like he was, when he was the number 2 driver against Seb. But then Mark leaves, he retires, and Daniel comes in, and Daniel beats Sebastian Vettel, the thing that Mark was trying so hard to do for so long. Yeah. So how is that a curse?
No, I think Yas did it.
Oh, you think Yas did it? Wow, that's a curveball that I don't think anyone was expecting.
Yeah, no, I think as soon as Mac, I think he was just like, we can't have someone like Daniel driving with my son.
Interesting. Okay. See, I think there's also this, people think it's Daniel that cursed it, which I think, he was the number 1 who then kind of became the number 2 or like 1A, 1B with Max, and then he leaves and then everything kind of goes down from there. So maybe it was a shared Australian curse. Mark said, I shall let you, Aussie Daniel, do well. And then, but once you're gone, the curse is back on. So, but that's just my only question for those that believe that it's Mark Webber, which is then, well, why did then Daniel come in and beat Sebastian Vettel right away?
Well, it is interesting now that you say like it being Daniel, because in a way, when you have a 1A and 1B driver, you're not curating the car so much for just the one person. You're trying to like find a mix. Right. And as soon as Daniel left, it was all Max all the way.
Well, Max and Daniel had the same driving style.
Yeah, that's fair.
Makes you think Red Bull. What could have been? I know you're watching.
We should move on.
But my other foe was just that we really, really need the Racing Bulls engineers to just really make stronger, more reliable, better front wings so they don't just pop off.
Yeah, that was pretty wild.
In the dirty air.
Yeah.
That was making me...
I also, like, when the strategy thing today really bummed me out. Like, please do a split strategy when you haven't seen other people doing that. Like, you're trying to compete with doing a second.
It's also like,
stop.
it's better. I think they went high risk, high reward, sort of. They needed to like do a middle ground of like, we'll probably get points with one of these cars because one of these strategies is going to work out.
Yeah. No dice.
Okay, you're a fan.
Well, one, I just like love what Racing Bulls is doing on social media.
Oh my God, did you die with the Australia?
That's perfect. Like, those admins are just so on it.
For those who don't know, if they didn't see on Instagram, Yuki and Isaac did the Kim Kardashian. Was it Kim and Chloe?
I think it was Kim and Courtney.
I'm so jet lagged.
I just came back from Australia.
Why?
Kim's like, why? And Courtney's, because I just came back from Australia. And then his little at the end, I was like, nailed it.
Isaac played Kim and Yuki was Courtney, and the lip syncing was on point.
Perfect.
The acting was great.
Yeah.
Like, chef's kiss.
Yeah, it was great.
Freaking loved it.
And then I'm really excited because the formerly known F1 with DRS podcast has come back as Party Mode podcast, sans Dax, which is fine, but it's like the only other F1 podcast I listen to.
Yes.
No offense to our friends out there. So I'm very happy it's back.
That is great. Oh, and I also want to just also say, we lost a Formula One former team principal. Eddie Jordan passed away this week, which is obviously sad. But my fan is that Laura Mueller, who's Esteban's race engineer, became the very first female race engineer to score points in F1.
Hell yeah.
With Esteban's
That's
P5.
amazing. Yeah.
So congrats
That's
to
awesome.
Laura and Haas and Esteban. That's cool. Okay.
Love to see it.
Let's get to some of these questions with our remaining time left. Okay, obviously a lot of people talking about the disqualification. Rate the Chinese GP out of 10.
So
it was kind of a little boring.
It was a little boring. It was interesting because at the beginning I think it was when we started to see that most teams were just going to do a one-stop strategy. It was kind of like, okay, this is over. I mean, there was some concern with Lando's brakes, like was George, but it never really got close enough to mean much. And I think the biggest battles were, really it was with Isaac and Jack in the back. So it was more just kind of like watching the kerfuffle. I thought it was pretty good until maybe, I don't know, lap 25-ish. It wasn't as like panicky feeling anymore.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of overtaking that happened, especially within the top 10. It was very much like people were just kind of in their positions and just sort of stayed in their positions for the most part.
Yeah.
Which is never really what you want.
Yeah.
So for me, it was like a 6 out of 10.
Yeah, I was going to say give it a 6, maybe bump it up to 7 because of the post-race drama, but the race itself I'd give a 6.
Yeah, they had to really amp up the post-race drama in order to make it a little spicy.
Yeah.
Okay, also we forgot to talk about, did you see who got driver of the day?
Kimmy, right?
Kimmy. Were you surprised by that?
Well, yeah.
I was a little surprised by that because I honestly felt like it should have, Oscar should have been a contender.
Yeah.
And honestly, Esteban.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, he did really well. And I mean, Kimmy did great too, but I didn't feel like Kimmy really was, I didn't feel like he was making any moves.
Yeah.
He wasn't
I have a hard time too because for me, like when I voted on driver of the day, if it wasn't like an obvious, like who was like, gonna win or whatever, it was kind of what the broadcast was following and like what the battles were interesting, and I feel like Kimmy did a great job, but I don't feel like we really like saw much of him during the race.
I think he was surprised too. I think I saw his posts or when they told him on the radio, he was kind of like, really? But congrats, Kimmy.
Because I honestly too, like with the front wing issue and all of that, like I kind of would have thought like maybe Chuck would have gotten it or something like that, but whatever.
Yeah. Also, was just gonna say this too. It's crazy. We're only 2 races in, and all but one team has scored points so far this season.
That's amazing.
Alpine is the only team to not score points so far.
That's so exciting.
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
Yeah. So RB.
Wow, things are really shaking up.
I know. RB has 3 points because of Yuki's sprint, but should have more than that. Sauber has 6, Aston has 10, Haas has 14, Ferrari and Williams are tied on points.
Wow,
17.
That's awesome.
Red Bull 36, Mercedes 57, and McLaren 78. So that's great to be this far in, and I think Alpine will score points. I think they're going to at some point.
That's exciting.
Which is great. Yeah. Did you think that the 10-second penalty for Jack was harsh?
Yes.
I didn't. I think he was.
I think he needed to have a penalty.
He was a little. I mean, we saw this last year. they are 10 seconds is now kind of the norm.
Yeah.
It's like they were like,
well, and he didn't get penalized for the second investigation at the end of the race too. So 2 5-second
all comes
penalties.
out in the wash.
Yeah.
I mean, it was deserved, I think. We talked a lot about, this is funny. Podium rank for best drivers on the radio, like of this race.
Oh, today? I mean, it would go for me, Yuki, Chuck, Lewis, or Lewis.
Yeah, honestly, I think it's Yuki, Chuck, Ollie.
Oh, Ollie was good, but also I forgot about Alex's. So hold on.
Yuki's definitely, I mean, the double punch.
Yuki, Chuck, Alex for me.
Yuki, Chuck, Alex. Okay, I'm going to say Yuki, Chuck, Ollie.
Okay.
Just for the little
chow.
It's a little more biting. But yeah, the double punch of
the panic.
What was the first one? The I want to.
Oh, yeah.
And then the from what?
Yeah.
I mean, it's really...
Also, quick question. Don't they have to push the radio button to communicate? So I just think it's funny, too, that he is pushing it to say ciao.
Yes.
Also, I had another question about the radios. So the cursing thing, which I roll about, is that applicable to radio communications as well? Or is it just like in press conferences and stuff that they're not allowed to curse? Or
I think it's just in the press conferences and
because there were a couple times that
Lando's
and I was like, well, if they're gonna get in trouble, like, why are you broadcasting those? You know what I mean? Like,
right.
You don't have to air those.
Right.
Anyway.
I mean, I guess they do. They are in control to be able to bleep it out.
Yes, that's
you know. Whereas in the press conferences, they maybe don't have the
that's true
delay or can't do that. I don't know.
Fair enough. Stupid rule.
Stupid rule. Yeah, exactly. Okay, a lot of people are asking about the Lewis Hamilton disqualification.
I don't understand.
From what I have been told or what I have learned, and I would love to be corrected if we're wrong in the comments. So please, kindly correct us in the comments. Kindly.
Jesus,
also, don't use our comment section to fight with other people.
Yeah, that's
I just want to say that. Don't, you can
DM them directly.
Yeah, you don't have to argue with people in the comments section.
Just leave it alone.
So from what I've learned, which is basically that skid block is measuring the height of the car. So if it gets shaved down too much, it basically means that the car is too low.
Oh, got
and
it.
So the car has to be within a specific height above the ground. So it's basically just measuring how close the car is to the ground. And if enough of that part has been removed, it basically suggests that the car is too low. That's my understanding of the penalty.
Yeah. I just think it's wild that for a second race, the two of them have been disqualified.
It's just,
I mean, it's crazy.
It's just atrocious.
Yeah.
And I saw it's the first time that two Ferrari drivers have been disqualified from a race at the same race.
Bonkers.
So, was the podium higher than usual? It looked funny. They did seem quite elevated, but I don't know that it didn't seem like it was unusually high.
I was getting ready I had it on, but I wasn't really paying attention. But probably.
What are your thoughts on Haas and Ollie's chows? Listen, I think we love
I love a pettiness.
We love a petty radio. We think it's funny. Lando's,
he's not saying it to them. He's not flipping them off.
Simply Lovely last season I thought was funny.
Yeah.
The chow, anytime
they're driving 200 miles an hour and they've got adrenaline.
It's funny.
I don't care.
It's funny.
Yeah.
It's funny. As long as they're not saying anything like super terrible or
some slur.
Of course not. That would be
a
be
chow's
bad.
harmless.
A chow is so harmless.
Yeah.
And it's fun.
It's his celebration with his engineer. Look at what. I don't care. I think it's fun.
Okay. Do you think Red Bull will replace Liam? If you had to predict.
Given their previous history and where we were at,
and the fact that the rumors are the fact that it's starting, and that Red Bull hasn't said no, it's not going to happen. That there hasn't been some declared.
Respectfully, they also said that it wasn't going to happen with Checo, and that was all a farce.
Yeah, but I'm saying they could still have replaced. They could still potentially replace Liam, but not the fact that they haven't said Liam will be racing for Red Bull in Japan. They haven't made it clear. Okay. The fact that they're considering it now tells me they're considering it. Yeah, but it's just, gosh, it could really be a big old mess if it doesn't work itself out. So that's anything else from China? Anything else you want to talk about?
I don't think so.
Okay, so that is our Chinese GP recap. Obviously, we have a week off, which I think is nice. Get a little bit of rest. see what happens with this Red Bull seat.
Yep.
And then we'll be back for Japan, which is exciting. Looking forward to getting back in with the Japanese fans, and they have a very fun energy that they bring to the races.
Maybe Jason Statham will go.
Maybe, I mean, come on, Jason. Like, your son needs
his
you
home
now
race
more than ever.
Especially if he does move into the Red Bull team, he'll need
the support. And you know what's good for Yuki is that if he does move to the Red Bull seat, that he'll at least be able to have, I assume, his family can be there, and that's all fun and good for him. So we'll have to wait to see what ends up shaking out there. And so I'm going to be out of town next weekend. So Hannah and I are going to be recording our episode for next week a little early. So hopefully there'll be some news to discuss, in the coming days here. But just wanted to give a heads up. Should there be any like later in the week news, we probably won't be able to get to that. But anything else?
I don't think so.
Make sure to like and comment and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Yes.
Leave us a review on Apple, Spotify, all the things.
Share with all your friends.
Like, we're still trying to get to that Hannah's goal of 10,000 subscribers.
We can do it.
We can do it. Just a few hundred every single race. We'll be there by the time we get to the end of the season.
Yeah. Just next time you're at dinner with your friends, just be like, hey, open it up.
Can I see your phone?
Yeah.
Subscribe.
They won't even know.
They won't even know. All right, guys. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Enchanté.